Just look at all of us.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Latika Pai, and I head the venture capital and private equity partnerships for Microsoft here in India. Today, we have a wonderful session with three fabulous founders, Chandni from Shifa Analytics, Namya from Rocket Learning, and Himani Agarwal from Intello Labs. This session is all about understanding how these female founders have really been able to take on the pandemic and work through it, and share some lessons that they have learned and some of the do's and don'ts in terms of what they're trying to do. Namya, I'm going to start with you. Namya, you are right now pursuing your MBA at HBS. You did your undergrad from Harvard, started, worked with Seva, and started Rocket Learning. So you are putting on multiple hats right now. You're a student, you're a co-founder, and you're in a pandemic. And the fourth part is you're in a different country. How are you managing, right? What is it that you're doing? What have you had to prioritize? What are some of the lessons that you've learned as a result of doing this?
Yeah, thanks, Latika. That's an excellent question, and I wonder sometimes myself. But I think what really helped us is that we actually started in the pandemic. So we were born sort of in April, early days of the pandemic. We thought it would, the lockdown would be over in 2 months, and we would be back on the field, back in schools. But it extended far beyond, I think, what a lot of us thought. But the advantage of that was that we could begin working remotely. So it meant that we could take advantage of talent from all over the country. And we built sort of robust technology processes, communication that's been holding us in very good stead. So when I was making the decision, I deferred last semester, but this semester I thought, it's a good idea to go back and, learn some more about early childhood education, get a little bit more experience. I think those sort of processes, those structures really held us in good stead. So I can still, make some of the important meetings. My team is being fantastic in accommodating and, being there for me slightly later in the evening or earlier in the morning. We have huddles weekly, remotely, where all of the team gets together. I've picked a few sort of key processes that I can continue working with, and the rest I feel very comfortable that the team on the ground can handle. So just prioritizing a few things that I think I can do from here, prioritizing, learning while I'm over here, and then sharing that learning with the team as fast as possible, and then remembering that I'm just going to get back soon. So I think those are the three things that I've been sort of focusing on.
Great. Himani, you are based in the epicenter, right, in Mumbai. Not only just physically, but also in the fact that Intello Labs and a lot of the work that you do comes under essential services. You're working in the agri space. How has the last 12 months been for you?
Yeah, I think that would be like chaotic, but so with like a lot of changing, guidelines and regulations, numbers going up and down. I think teams being scared, or the HR implementing proper guidelines in the locations. I think enabling everyone to get masks, sanitizer, even the suits, etc., wherever required, supplying those. There were times when those were also in shortage. We've seen those times as well, right? So I think like with every 15-20 days, there has been some or the other change, right? But the business can't stop, right? We have to be on field. I think with wave 2, we are experiencing, those challenges emerging again. Although we are now better prepared, so at least that is a good thing. But I mean, it seemed like things were getting more normal and people were more comfortable with the travel, going to the field and stuff like that. And now suddenly, especially in Maharashtra, and we deal a lot with onions in Nasik, right? So with the situation being what it is, it's been so like just yesterday we were searching, right, that how to get e-pass from government, and small tactical issues like that is what we've been doing.
Great. Thanks, Simani. So, Chandni, how have you been? The last we met was literally just prior to, lockdown. Chandni is, part of the Highway to 100 Unicorns from Pune, and we met in Goa where we had a founders boot camp. And I still remember I had, I had to I had to take a call, right? Because this was just about the time Microsoft was kind of giving us, cautionary to say, could we do the event, not do the event? But because we were less than a particular number, I think 100 or 75, I did get permission for us to go and meet there. But it was a wonderful time, and that's when founders, investors, others came, and this was the first week of March, and here we are a year later. So how have things been for you?
So I think it was one of the best events we could have had before the world literally shut down. The boot camp helped the team get encouraged for having all the architectural decisions made. All of those sessions that we had with Microsoft, the Azure, the free credits that we had, that made us bold enough to keep going, like despite all the other challenges which came with the pandemic. Could be cash flow initiatives, because obviously the payments were delayed by the existing clients. We had not many new sales per se. We realized that with Microsoft support, with all of these sessions that we had on the database, on the cloud management, the team was focused on product development. They were not disturbed by the chaos outside. So, day in and day out, what we were doing is we were preparing our product and not getting affected by all the pandemic lows that were happening around. I think personally for Cypher, it was a very good year because we have come up with Reflection.ai, which is our AI-based video tagging platform. We have seen how the team has emerged very dedicated. Sorry. We have actually scaled up from 20 to 100 people in the last year, and we have basically made the most out of this crisis, I believe, because what we did is all we did is stay connected and keep working, take support from the likes of Vinayak and Latika's team in Microsoft. And I think in this entire year, what we have learned is that remotely or not, if we are dedicated and productive, we do not need to meet in person. There were a few challenges, I believe, because obviously we had to do a few very critical architectural discussions. We actually changed our architecture from monolithic to microservices. So at times we felt that in-person meetings would have made more sense, but then we had created small rooms for each team, and the team showed a lot more accountability than before. We had never micromanaged them, so this year was no different. They made their own rooms, and then we would just jump in and out of all the rooms, and it was just like jumping into conference rooms in the physical setup. So I believe that it was only possible because the team believed in what they were creating, and they believed in the company. And we also made sure from our side whatever we could do to make it comfortable for them, to not create a panic-like situation. I believe it was we were very fortunate to actually get into the Microsoft program just before the pandemic, because it actually set a step ahead for what we had to plan for the entire year. So, we all we had to do was look back to, okay, what are we supposed to do for the entire year? And pandemic or not, I think we were singularly focused on that. So,
Great. For all you viewers there, I did not set Chandani up to respond to this question and about my Microsoft. So, but anyways, I'm so glad to hear, Chandani, that the timing was good and that it really helped you in terms of the focus. But that's clearly why we wanted to have this session. Namya, what would be great to really understand is tell us more about rocket learning, right? You said, just like I know a lot of people having COVID babies, you've had a COVID startup, which is like a baby. So tell us about rocket learning. What made you start rocket learning? What is the kind of traction you've got so far?
Sure. So I think I wanted to be in the social impact space for a very long time. I think probably in my early teens, I decided that this kind of inequality we see in India is not something we should see in the world, and I wanted to do something about it. So I think I've been interested in education since then. And what I realized while sort of doing research, looking at organizations, was that the early years of a child's life are really important. So about 85 to 90% of a child's brain development happens before the age of 8. And so if we don't intervene by that point, then in some sense that child might already have lost the race, right? But before they're even 8 years old. And so the importance of sort of working with children at that age became quite clear. And then the other aspect was, communities and parents. So I think parents, even low-income parents with very limited education, believe very strongly in education for their children in India, especially, and they can be involved in education at that age. So what we do is to send sort of educational materials to groups of parents and communities that they can then do with their children and send responses back. And then we have technology at the back end that lets us send them nudges like report cards, video compilations. So really what we're trying to do is to revolutionize early childhood education in India by working with parents and communities. So we had a COVID baby, and we work with actual babies, and we started in April of last year. We now work with over 1 lakh users on the platform in 3 states, and by next year we have partnerships in place to work with 1 million children. So it's been growing really fast. I think the pandemic has been a challenge in many ways, but I think it's also highlighted the importance of parents in education in a way that I think no other thing could do. So I think all educators, all organizations are now thinking of ways to engage parents, and hopefully will continue to do so in the long term. So it's also been sort of very helpful in making very, very clear that we can't ignore the parents and only focus on the school.
No, I think that's really super interesting, and the fact that I completely agree with you that early education overall, I think needs a huge rehaul, right? And not just in India. Interestingly, talking to educators even in different parts of the world, I think learning has to change. It has to keep up with the times. In fact, my son just graduated from UCLA, and he finished it early, and he says, oh my god, all this effort for what, right? I've got my bachelor's degree, but what I'm really learning from it, it's really life skills that I learned. I was like, oops, that hurt, because that was a very expensive training. But I think his point was that which I completely understand too, is that that education and the way that all of us have grown up with is not necessarily still what the world needs, right? So but you can't change college level education without looking at what early education does. So the fact that you're doing it K through kindergarten through middle school to high school, I think progressively will definitely be super valuable. Himani, sorry, I call you Himani Agarwal because this is one of my colleagues at Microsoft, Himani Shah from Intello Labs. Himani, tell us about Intello Labs. I know I've had deep dives with you all, and I find the space absolutely fascinating in terms of what you're doing in the AI, cognitive space for produce, right? So tell us a little bit more about what you're doing there.
Right. So we started Intello Labs in 2016, with mission to reduce food loss and enable fair price trades between, farmers and buyers on the basis of objective quality assessment. I think that is a key factor that would bring transparency to the entire supply chain. So we use visual imaging and AI to digitize the post-harvest quality assaying of various fruits, vegetables, and spices. So this sort of brings standardization to the process of assaying, which is otherwise very manual and subjective, and it empowers anyone with just a smartphone to understand the quality of the produce in question. Right, for the last few years, we have been working with largest retailers, both online and offline in India, and we are able to, improve their quality index that they measure customer returns, right, and procurement costs for the F&B commodities. So, like Chandni mentioned, in pandemic, we were actually able to, as recently as in Jan, we decided to democratize this technology and launched Praman, which is an agri-tech platform connecting these buyers and sellers. So sellers are farmers and FPOs at the production hubs of the country, and buyers are the wholesalers, exporters, traders from the entire country, and they all have free access to this platform, right? So through this pandemic, while there were a lot of challenges, I think one good thing, key thing was understanding and need of digitization, right? People were more adaptive to moving to digital platform, and I think the standardization in quality process, the assurance that you will get what you are seeing, right, the same quality produce. Through this, we were able to uh, digitally enable the fair price trades. Right. So in just the last 3-4 months journey, we have more than 5,000 farmers and 1,200 buyers across the country, and moving around 300 tons of fresh produce daily. Which we believe that it kind of motivates us to keep going even in the COVID times, to visit the mandis and the markets and be on the field. And we believe it will truly revolutionize the way the fresh produce B2B trading that happens across the country.
So, as part of what you're doing, are you all trying to remove the middleman? What really is, because it's a very complex structure that is there, right? Clearly, with all
Yeah.
the agitations that were going on, in terms of the farmers' bill that came out, etc. So, how is Intello? Really, I completely understand. You need technology and your ability to kind of separate a big onion from a small onion to the right size onion to etc. Right? And is huge. How so? Where exactly is that sweet spot? How do you're going to the mandis? Do people at the mandis look at you as someone who's going to come in and replace them? It'd be interesting to understand that.
Right. Absolutely. So eventually it may transform the supply chain, but today what we experience is that at the mandis or for the sellers, we are just another buyer, right? Even as a marketplace, and if we are able to give them what they need, which is liquidity for their produce, and right pricing, right, then they are happy to sell. Same with the buyers. This marketplace is another sellers. They have their own physically, vendors set up. If you're able to deliver right quality and at the market price, then they're happy to switch. And I think overall, as a platform, what we're trying to do is, bring uh, bring visibility across the country. So, for example, if I'm trading only in from Nasik to Calcutta, if that is the route I'm trading in, I have built my relationships there and so on. That's what I continue to do, and try to bring in volume. But at the same time, there is a huge arbitrage that in onions in Tamil Nadu or Kerala. will actually be more highly priced, because all onions from Nasik are being routed to Delhi or Kolkata. So that's just an example. But when you have the visibility of that chain and the historic data, which we do, I think a lot of arbitrage we are able to pass on to the sellers, that this is so if a Delhi buyer is buying this at 15 rupees, we are able to buy it at 18 rupees and still make a profit by sending it to south.
Okay, so
Right.
interesting. So just last question before I go back. So what you're doing is that you are actually giving the best price to the sellers, right? That is there, and you're doing it as a result of using technology to kind of segregate the product, and then say, okay, for this I'm going to give you this price for the next bit because of
Yes.
quality standards. So that's really what you're doing with Intello, right? So
Yeah, best price but linked to quality. So I give
that's
that
precisely
quality assurance to buyer as
correct,
well. Absolutely.
correct. Interesting. Chandni, tell us about the clients that Shifa has and the work that you do.
Okay. So at Cypher, we are a media analytics company. We are actually our product Reflection.ai. It is an AI-based video tagging platform. So what we are doing is we are primarily focusing on the media and entertainment clients, but in general, any client can just come, upload a video, and our AI models will tag all the face, object, action, even compliance, which is a very critical part here because you get fined for it if you see a lot of examples there. So what we do is we have a lot of computer vision and speech and audio models, which we have built over the last year. And when on this platform, you can do collaboration, tagging, and it can be used for various use cases for content writers, for broadcasters, for any client who is willing to have a task managed with proper tagging. One of the use cases you could say is contextual advertisement. So if there is a particular person, an emotion of the person, and an object for let's say 5 seconds, if you put such parameters and you identify that on the frame, so our platform will give you that output, and our client can use that for using for specific targeted advertisements. So it's a very user friendly, simple platform where you could just basically upload, get the AI tagged outputs, and use it for collaboration, for search, and task management. So that is what Cypher is. We formed a company in 2016. We have recently moved our headquarters to Singapore. Karan, my co-founder, and I have been involved in this from the starting. I primarily manage the product and the people. Karan is more on the technology and the client side of it. It's been a good journey. We have earlier also parallelly done a few service engagements to meet both, help meet both ends. But right now we are totally focused on the product, and even though made in India, it is an entirely global product. And this year is where we hope to, capture good ground across the globe. So yeah, that's what it is.
Great, well, wonderful. Uh, so this is a question nothing to do with the pandemic, but more in terms. I mean, all three of you, come from phenomenal universities, right? Namya, you're at Harvard when did your undergrad there. Himani, you're from IIT. Chandni is from IIM. I mean, this is like a super powered, panel, right? What is your so when you are building your teams, you do hear about how the network is really important. You have the IIT alum network, the boys all come together, they fund each other, etc. So my question to you, to all three of you, and I'll start with Namya, Himani, and Jani, is that has that network been extended to you as a founder? Has that helped you? How are you leveraging it or not?
Yeah, now that's also a sort of really important question, and I wonder that sort of the fact that we're all high-powered academically, right? Like maybe you could get a male panel that's less high-powered. Maybe we need the brands more in some sense to be seen as credible. But I think those networks are extended. I actually have the benefit of also having co-founders who are from IIT Delhi and I'm Ahmedabad, and so sort of their networks also come in. I think there's Harvard both resources for innovation. So the Harvard Innovation Labs is a partner and a funder. There are people here, and it definitely builds on the credibility. I think coming from a US based college, it was a little bit more difficult to maybe, have that network. And so working in McKinsey beforehand, I think in India, I helped to create that network and help me reach out to people. There is definitely some aspect of I think the boys club where people definitely know each other better and have lived with each other and can fund each other, but slowly that is opening up, and I think people are recognizing the importance of diversity. I think we all try to keep each other honest as well to make sure we're not just recruiting from an IIT or an IIM, right? That we're making sure that our company and even hopefully someday our leadership will reflect the people that we actually serve. So making sure that there's community representation across, from top to bottom. So very long-winded answer. I think we're trying to both use those networks, but also stay diverse and have people from different backgrounds who bring different ways of thinking and learn from them truly instead of having tokenism. I think so. Pluses, minuses. We're trying our best. I think the world is opening up. That is definitely clear.
Great, thanks, Himani.
Right. So I think, definitely. I think not just college alumni network, but also like Namya mentioned, McKinsey, right? So all of us who have worked in organizations before starting Intello Labs, I think all that network definitely helps, especially when you're doing a startup and trying to do something of your own. Whether it is recruitment or investor meetings or even sales meeting with corporates and stuff like that. I think the pedigree definitely gives more credibility. There is a connect if you're from same institute, and I mean, I'm sure that later on it is, of course, there is a value add and it has to be a win-win situation and stuff like that. But starting or getting entry to any first level meeting and connect, I think the references are very important, and they do help us a lot.
What is your role at Intello Lab, Himani? Are you on the tech side or on the ops side?
So I am on the finance side.
On the finance side.
Okay. Yeah. So I am playing the role of CFO and business strategy at Intello Labs. Being a founder, I've done a lot of sales as well earlier, but I manage investor relations, and I come also from around 10 years of corporate finance kind of experience. So.
Okay. So what did you do before Intello?
So I started my career with Deutsche Bank. For 2 years, I was there in global markets, and I've done a couple of my own LLP format startups post that, and then I was with People Strong, which is an HR solutioning company. Heading the corporate planning and strategy department. So working very closely with the CFO and CEO there on various strategic initiatives.
Well, interesting. You hold the thought. I'll come back to both you and Namya. A couple of points. So Chandni, you said you had got your MBA from IIM Ahmedabad and you worked at Yes Bank. And so how has the network helped you in terms of starting up, getting business, etc.?
So, as both of them rightly mentioned, it's always easier to have the first foot in the room if you have this kind of a pedigree. But in our case, I would say that specifically for the team, our team is filled with full stack developers and data scientists who do not come from the management background. So, how we have built our team is more on the lines of having interns who have proven themselves and absorbed them. So that's how our team has in general grown. But when you say my network in the IIM community, in the S Bank community, also I am Bangalore because we were part of the Goldman Sachs Women Entrepreneurship. So all of these definitely help. I think the clients believe giving a chance to and it's just like the boys club thing, but they definitely probably have more faith that we will not fly by night. So they will give you a chance, they will give you a POC to work with. It is easier to definitely get at least one connect in one of the potential clients, if you just skim through your network. So that helps. I think I personally benefited from the mentorship of professors from these institutes as well, because they guide you with all these challenges that you have as an entrepreneur. And definitely the network for sales helps, but in the long run I think it is the product that counts. And uh, I think we have to at some level definitely maintain the network with our institutions. It helps to get the first step in, but I think where the conversion stands, and in case of reflection specifically, as I am planning to go global, I do not really know where it's going to go. So I maybe will be able to answer this to you 6 months later, how much the alum network has actually helped in that stance. But definitely, as both of them mentioned, it definitely gives us credibility, the first foot in the door. But in our case, since we were more on the product development phase, I will not be able to answer the sales, effect of it. So yeah.
Sure. Thanks. So Namya, you've been around for about a year now. So what's interesting is that what are you finding as the biggest challenge in terms of adoption of your platform? How are you managing that?
Yeah, that's really good question, Atika, and it's something we struggle with, right? So I think we've tried to make it as easy as possible. So have a platform that a lot of parents are already on, that they hopefully will not delete, and make them in a group. So they're in a group with other people from the community, which automatically we've seen with self-help groups leads to accountability and peer effects. So we've tried to make it as much sort of opt-out model, so you are automatically in the group if you have a smartphone, and then if you don't have it, that is one aspect of inclusion that we're trying to do. So 50% of low-income parents do have smartphones by now, but 50% of them don't. So I think that is one aspect that we're trying to fix with, say, physical workbooks, with teachers who are working with them and so on. On the platform itself, I think parents who are super users, who are users, which is about 30% of our parents, they continue to engage. We've seen quite frequently, but the less active parents, we see a lot of churn, right? So figuring out, personalized nudges to those people, so going off the platform, figuring out ways for them to come back. So, our parents there might be a perfectly good reason for them not to respond. So they go to the village for a week, and don't have connection there, right? So there are all kinds of logistical challenges for our parents as well. Or, there's a wedding, or there's some problem at work. The father goes somewhere, takes the only smartphone at home, and goes away. So how do we reactivate those parents? How do we bring them back? How do we say that that's okay, you can revise looking at these things and then come back into the platform? I think that's one of our biggest challenges, and it's what we're trying to focus on this year as well.
Thanks, Namya. Sorry, I have a puppy who insists on barking, so you're going to hear her from time to time, and she refuses to leave the room. So, so
Not a
Imani,
problem.
from a technology perspective, again, you're dealing with farmers, you're dealing with a community who is not necessarily comfortable with technology, right? It's this has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years, and now you come in with technology. How do they look at Intello Labs and the technology? Do they look at it with skepticism? What is their are they open to adopting the technology that you have? Do they because right now what was being potentially where there could be a lot of leakage, right, in terms of how you're sorting out, segregating, etc. Tell us some, because this is a very key part of what you're trying to do, is to buy the trust in terms of what the technology is doing, right?
Right, absolutely. So I think from farmers' perspective, at least, how where we deal. Uh, so we have field source who assist them, right, in using the technology. I think there are a lot of FPOs and very progressive FPOs who are quite well versed with tech. Uh, so we see good adoption. Um, but I think what is more important for us, like you rightly mentioned, that whether they trust you or they are skeptical about you. And I think that is the key point. So if you're able to sell the produce and give the price, it really doesn't matter to them, how easy the tech platform is, or I think tech optimizes all the processes for us, right? The entire supply chain of sourcing the produce to delivering it to the right buyers, and buyers also get a lot of visibility onto various quality of produce available, various rates of produce available. But for the sellers, it's more assisted, and I think the trust is based on whether I will get right payment at the right time. I think that's the key, the liquidity that for the produce sector.
So has the pandemic actually helped in adoption of the technology? Because as a result of technology being there, your ability to segregate, be out there, pay them, like you said, has that increased?
Absolutely. So I think because of pandemic, there was more trust or more need of going digital. Right, having an organized player solve all your issues of payment and transport, etc., which you can't really physically travel, meet people, follow up, etc. All those going to the mandis and checking the quality versus somebody assuring the quality at your doorstep, right? I mean, even in B2C, we see that trend that people are ordering more F&B online or home deliveries than going to the market and purchasing. I think similar trend in B2B, which has really helped us. Um,
I
like,
think so too. I think so too. Wherever, in fact, when I talk to startups, not just here in India, but across Asia, right from say Sri Lanka to Myanmar to even to the Maldives, Thailand, Vietnam. What I've been finding is that almost everyone has said that the pandemic has been a boon for them because of the
absolutely.
fact that at every level they've had to adopt technology. So if they were selling into a bank that was hesitant in terms of their DT strategy, that bank has really moved quickly in terms of engaging, right? Because they didn't want to be left behind. Digital payments has just taken off in terms of so whatever that would have probably taken maybe 3, 4, 5 years, the 12 months, I think, for technology based any technology based startup, which I think all three of you all are, of course, part of that wave. I think the pandemic has definitely helped, right? So that's interesting to know that even and Namya corroborating that the audiences that y'all are looking at who would typically be tech shy are now really open and adopting it. So, Chandni, back to you. There was a point that you made that you were building your team, and you were bringing in interns and working through that, right? So this is also a big challenge when you're a startup and you're small. You're still to go after any kind of big funding. And anyway, big funding is all relative these days, right? Himani, you all raise Series A, but then when you start seeing all these unicorns, etc., you're constantly it's a battle that one, I don't know how anybody wins, right? So how has it been for you in terms of building your team? Because I think this is a very important. I mean, you can't play the money game. Okay, you can't play the money game in terms of being able to hire people in. So what is it that you've used as a tool in terms of attracting and retaining talent? Because I think that's the biggest challenge any startup has, right? And the pandemic really, in many ways, as much as we say, yeah, this works with all of us can sit across, and I can zoom in from one room to the other room. The reality is not being physically present in terms of being able to interview the person, bring them on, for them to feel that level of a bonhomie amongst each other. How have you been able to build your team up?
So there were a couple of things we did over the last year, and you are right. It was very challenging to, especially scale from something like 20 to 100 people, most of them being hired during pandemic, to build that kind of bond during this time. So for the existing people who had actually joined us out of college probably 4 years back and had stuck with us, the first concern was to assure that there's not going to be any job loss, there's not going to be any pay cut because of the pandemic, performance irrespective. So we used to actually conduct regular town halls and assure of things like that. We also promised the appraisals, of course delayed. We said we'll review it in October and do it with effect April, and we did that later. So these are some things which first monetarily give you the assurance you're not panicking, you're not hunting for jobs outside. That said, our team in over the years, I believe those who have stayed know what that we are building something big. They believe in the product, they believe in the team. The work culture, the company itself has been built because of them. We have all together set up the company, right? So even though we took the challenge of scaling our size or tripling our core development team, we gave them the accountability. So the seniors knew it was their responsibility to build their team, to spread the work and get it done. Other than that, we ensured, we checked with them what are the kind of technology upgrades you all want to do. Since we were anyways in a architectural shift, everyone was learning, so they knew that in this company they were going to learn way more than what their peers were doing at different companies. So if I say for my team members who are out of college 3 to 4 years, I definitely know their experience and knowledge in the latest technologies is quite high, and I think that comes from their own dedication, the extra time they put, the interest that they show. We did things which were easier earlier in person. In office, we used to have those birthday get-togethers, those weekly festival celebrations. Obviously all of that had stopped, so what we had to do was we had to plan for some engagement activities. We would have small quizzes, some skit competition which was totally non-work but be awarded by vouchers or by just so we had these very small events like give your work from home setup, prepare a skit regarding corona safeties, or a general Q&A quiz kind of setup once in a while. We even did tea break sessions. So at 5:30, everyone who wanted to join these online sessions and have chai together. So, they do not feel that things have changed a lot. So I think these were some things that so I think how my team stays is because we all believe that we are a big family. It's going to get bigger every year, and I think we let them take the shots. We at one point there was no second line after Karan and me. Now I have a good team of seniors who can take the shot, and we know we give them that thing. So
So you moved from 20 to 100 in the pandemic?
yes, so in 13
Wow.
months we have
Wow,
done.
that is a large team to have, virtually. That's amazing. I think I would be nervous, scaling from 20 to 100 in 12 months. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, Latika, but we couldn't even let our team take the entire burden. I mean, they needed resources, so you had to take that shot. So yeah, I think
No, but that's like whoa. That is more like the rocket side of things, right? Growing that big. So it's interesting journey for sure. Namya, since you started during the pandemic, this question is like, so how did you find people? How did you, what did you do? How big is your team?
Yeah. So not as much as Chandni, but we're now 35 people. So we went from, I think, well, zero beginning, and then the four of us co-founders to 35 people. And yeah, the four of us found each other mostly through chance, honestly. Well, my brother is there, so we've known each other for a while, but his neighbor, friend's brother. So we came together out of a shared passion for, I think, the problem, and with excitement for the solution. So I think relate very strongly to what Stanley said, that we're building something that could impact millions of people, and we're already seeing that, and it's something that's never been done. So I think in a lot of cases, it's taking something that works somewhere else and then trying to bring it to some new space, or something that worked in some other part of the world. This is actually a solution that, from what we can see, nobody has done before. So I think that excitement really brought people together. And now we have a leadership team of 7 people who are incredible, and we're building. So I think the communication with new people was always that you're joining for the impact, you're joining for the innovation and the excitement, and you're joining for growth, right? Like, we were just going through our first appraisal process, and we were looking at the list of our first hires, and we're like, this is an incredible group of people. We got really lucky, and we can see these people have a future in the company where 3 or 4 years later they'll be managing entire teams, and sort of instilling the culture that we've been trying to instill in those teams as well. So there's always an aspect of, I think, serendipity in these things. But yeah, the other thing is to make sure that you have people with the right passion, the right values, the right sort of spirit of risk taking and innovation, and fun. So we always try to bring in, I think, we're a very young team. So, at least once a month, do a scavenger hunt, or, Pictionary online, or Among Us. So one of our, and like giving rein to other people's creativity. So we have, huddles, and we thought of some of these, ideas for team things, but then the group really ran with it. So one person made a 40-page slide deck to explain Among Us to how that's played. So it took more time to go through the slide deck than to actually play the games, but it makes people more invested. It makes people see teammates as beyond work, right? Like, what really makes them tick, and who are they? So trying to do all of that, still hoping that someday we will have a physical office, but that day seems to get further and further away. But I think it's worked quite well so far in making sure, keeping the excitement alive. We're growing really fast, so I think that keeps the excitement alive in any case. We have new team members every week, but I think also telling the team, one interesting rule for startups that I had heard was the rule of 3. So every time you go from 3 to 9 to 9 to 27 people, like, relationships change, hierarchies change, structures come into play. So making sure our older team members are comfortable with the fact that they might not see us as much anymore, that they, but that their importance is in no way diminished. In fact, it's growing. They'll have their own teams to deal with later. So just communicating, over communicating, keeping people together, giving them a lot of responsibility, and letting their ideas run free.
I want a copy of the 40-page deck with James.
It is a piece of art. It was done by one of our.
You should definitely give this to the community. That's brilliant.
Open source,
Yeah.
absolutely, all the way.
So Hibani, you wear the CFO hat, right? And again, with you've raised your Series A, but in this environment where there's so much of money being raised, how are you able to build your team? How are you able to retain people? How are where are you looking at investing those funds? Because you can never, you can never beat this, right? You have to find other strategies. So what have you? Because finally everything comes down to you. In terms of the approvals on money spent, etc. So it must be challenging, right?
Right. Absolutely. But I think so concurring with Namya, I think communication and over communication is the key to keep the team motivated, right? Especially in the times where they're not physically meeting and getting to know each other, getting to know working style of different people. There is always miscommunication that may happen, and you need to sort it out. Right. And I think we also tried, all these initiatives which worked well of having, so one thing we started was Microsoft Teams and the rooms in it, I think, which was really helpful. So it was as easy as right. Connecting was easy. Right. The HR had to prepare a lot of onboarding material. I think making people aware and plan their meetings. Who is responsible for what? So we are around 250 people. I think largest of the three here.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. And in terms of uh, I think the older team faced less of a challenge, but onboarding new people, and especially at leadership level, where there are key accountabilities given to them, helping them navigate through the organization. Where do they need to go for what? I think that I think we handled well, but it was definitely something new that we had to do. I mean, I'm going to steal the idea of this tea break session from Chandni. We have not been doing that. Sounds interesting.
No, I
Because we
think
all really miss that, right? That you're married with and you go for a chai downstairs.
Maybe we'll have to have an
We
among us
also
in the community. Sorry.
absolutely. We also have, like three sets of people. Some who do work from home, some who have to come to office for certain work or meeting or hardware related executions, and people who are on field as well. So I think we had to have different kinds of programs and engagement activities for these three different sets of people, and I think larger group for sharing messages, right, and playing some doing some group activities was good. But for more engagement, we also broke them down into smaller groups, and had more engaging activities, had grievance sessions, tried to address their issues. Right. And also in terms of, I think very pandemic specific, I was talking to you earlier about the e-pass and stuff, which happened last year as well, happening now again. We also, reimburse them for COVID testing. We have given COVID insurance to all the guys. So I think the communication and the messaging that you are taken care of by the company is really important.
It's actually quite amazing that all three of you have grown, and not not because and it's not like grown by onesie twosies, right? Adding one to etc. You'll have good, like literally it's been a heavy growth. And so I think the question that I have, for you, Chandni, actually to all of you all, we have about 6 minutes, maybe a couple of minutes each, is to say that what do you see see as, I don't think that any of us have the answer as to when this is going to end, right? Yesterday would have been good, or maybe a few months away would have been good. But assuming that we are all going to see this up down crazy, right? What do you believe are the one or two things that you absolutely need to keep your eye on the ball to be able to survive the next 12 months? Is it money? Is it revenues? Is that what I mean by money? Is it funding, revenues, top line, people? What is it that you believe is going to be your focus? Because you can't, we all want to say it's going to be everything, but the reality is that there are certain things you have to give more priority or the other over the other. So what is it that you believe you're going to focus on?
So for us, it is going to be sales. Our product is ready. We are going to market by this month end. So COVID or not, international travels permitted or not, we actually have 3 international media events which were cancelled last year. We were hoping them to happen in person this year, might again be virtual. So I think our focus is to get to the right people and make the sales. And the team, the team has to stay. The team has to grow. That should continue in the manner that it is. Everyone should continue remaining safe. Work from home for us. Fortunately, we can 100% work remotely. Even our clients now understand that we can continue with virtual meetings. But in our case, a good go-to-market right now for reflection would be the app priority.
Okay, so that's good. So growth and revenues is your focus.
Absolutely.
Okay, Namya?
Yeah, so I would say sort of customer retention in the sense that, what we're trying to do is behavior change. So how do we get parents to spend 15 to 30 minutes a day with their child on educational activities? And, we've seen that happening on a sustained basis for 8 months, but can we see that happen over, a year and a half or over 2 years? Looking at the impact of that. So we're doing a randomized control trial with the Poverty Action Lab, which, Nobel Prize winners, Abhijit Banerjee, Esther Duflo, their organization. So, understanding the impact of actually, staying in our program and doing this on a sustained basis, and unlocking the tools for behavior change, right? So how do we get customers on our platform for sure, but how do we keep them on the platform? How do we keep educating? How do we keep creating value for both the children and for the caregivers, bringing women on the platform, keeping mothers on the platform, despite everything else that's going on in their lives. So I think that is one sort of huge aspect. And the second, I would agree with Chandni, is the team. We are still growing our team. If there are any software developers who want to create a huge impact on the lowest income, the earliest learners in the country, please reach out. And generally keeping the culture alive, keeping our people with us.
Great. And Himani, what is your focus and priority for the next 12 months?
Right. So I think one thing that is very key that we learned during last year was definitely agility. I think the focus, priority, change of the strategy that you define is you need to be very agile and adapt to the situations which keep changing. But I'm sort of going to wear a CFO hat and say that cash is king. I know it's cliche, but yeah, you do need to survive. Whether it's both, it's business growth and investments both, or it is even optimizing your cost, right? You can spend more, but you need to look at the ROIs that you're getting from those spends. So absolutely that. And I think team wise, I think health is also sort of focus which gets somewhere missed in the business. I think we I think the core team, the leadership team, is very critical for any business to run. I mean, you can always find replacement, but it has the time loss and the value loss. And with so many people getting critically sick around, I think it's even more critical for the hopefully not 12 months, but at least for me right now.
Yeah. So I think the timing here is absolutely perfect. We have about 40 seconds. I am in pitch darkness. I have no idea how I'm still live and how the internet is working. So I want to. That's why suddenly, if you see me in dark, it's not because I was trying to create any kind of halo effect here. But oh, the lights are on. But thank you so much, Chandni and Namya and Himani. Fabulous getting to know the work that each one of you are doing. I think for the audience out there, definitely the key takeaways are that A, you can hire and hire aggressively during the pandemic. In fact, you've seen, all three of the founders have done such a fabulous job. B, I think this is a time to double down and really focus on growth. I think this is the opportunity that all three of us have talked about. And C, I think which I found most important is that all three of them have focused on people and how they need to make sure that their people, their teams are looked after and looked after well. It's a very, very challenging time. And I think looking after your people, your team is going to be that really the secret sauce to be around and be a super successful company. It is during when there is no pandemic, but I think it's even more important that everybody knows. And it was really nice to hear all three founders talk about that being their focus. Thank you again, and look forward to working closely with all three of you.
Thank
Have a
you so
good
much.
night. Thanks.
Thanks so
Thanks,
much,
Latika.
Latika.
See you. Cheers. Bye.